Y ahora les voy a presentar a Julio Guerrero, que es un ingeniero de renombre en Estados Unidos, que vino especialmente a esta convención y nos va a hablar de fracking. Me gustaría oír algo de la tecnología.
Sí, es lo que voy a hablar.
Y market y technical drivers. Y en este momento le doy el uso de la palabra.
Gracias. Okay. For those of you who are not too familiar with fracking, I have prepared 2 slides just to give you an idea about how it works. Okay, so basically what you do is you have vertical wells, and then a certain depth you deviate from the vertical path, and then you go into the horizontal path, and then you pump into the well a combination of water, sand, and some chemicals at very high pressures, very high flow rates, and what that does is create these fractures in the formation. By doing that, you increase the exposed area of the formation, and that's the way in which you unleash the gas that is trapped in the formation. There is a technology which is very similar to this, which is used to extract oil that is also trapped in shale, and that's what is called tide formations. So on one hand, you have, when it's gas, trapped in shale, you use fracking, and then the other one, when you have the oil trapped in shale, that's what is called tide oil. And we will focus on fracking. These are some of the areas, geographic areas in the United States, where you can find most of the shale that contains the gas. Here, this is mainly Texas, Oklahoma. Here you have Pennsylvania and New York. And the presentation will allow you to get a bit more understanding about both the market and the technical drivers. So here you have between 1980 and 2012 the production in billions of cubic feet per day of oil and gas. So in this pink color you have the gas, and here you have in blue you have the oil. And you can see that between around 2004, 2005, due to an incredible revolution in the technology related to fracking, the production has gone up. You will notice at the end of the presentation that this will have significant geopolitical consequences in the coming years. What are the reasons why this has been possible only, and memorize this word, only in the United States? Because the drivers, first of all, there is a lot of this in the United States that I have found. It's a very politically stable country. The minerals and the land ownership is private. So, what's your name?
Fernando.
Fernando. So if Fernando were living in Oklahoma, and he has some land in Oklahoma, he has the rights not only on the surface, but everything below to the center of the planet. So you are motivated to get into the business because you can get return on taking the risk of exploiting the minerals underground, which is not the case in most of the countries, including Europe and so on. Okay? Well, the infrastructure, the technology, etc. So these are the characteristics. In a nutshell, you have kind of bubbles that contain the oil or the gas. What you do is you go down, then you get into the shale, and then what you do is you make perforations on the walls of the well, and then these perforations expose the formation to the main well, and then what you do is you pump this fluid, the water with the sand and the chemicals, and what they do is they start fracking there, and then you get these monsters. So on the surface, you will see only one ray, and you can see that you have what is called multilaterals. So from one main well, you start drilling all these wells, and then you go lateral, and that's the way in which you do this. To give you an idea of the magnitude of this volume, well, you don't know Boston. We'll use Boston anyway. So the main building in Boston is called the Prudential Center. So that will be more or less the height of this, or even deeper. And then the area will be all the city of Boston. Okay. This is how it looks on the surface. And we will get back to this picture to explain to you the risk also on the environment, okay, the challenges. You can see that this is hardcore mechanical engineering. If you are thinking about where your mechanical engineering background could have an application, this is one of those areas, okay? It's a massive use of heavy machinery, pumps, pressure, energy, and so on. This is an aerial view from an airplane in Texas that gives you an idea. So each knot is a well, and under those wells, or under those rigs, you have the myriad of, this is, I would say, more or less 1/3 of the size of Santa Cruz, okay? The economic impact of this revolution in the United States between 2012 and 2020, this is the expected number of jobs that this will produce. The tax revenue, these are billions of dollars is 10 to the 9, okay? GDP, which is the Producto Interno, increase the disposable income in the houses due to the economy of the country. And this is the amount of capital expenditure and billions of dollars that all of this industry will bring, okay? Between 1980 and 1998, the future looked very dark, like the US gas proof reserve were going down, okay? So there is an expression in the United States that is called being energy independent. So if you were in this point in history, or this point in history, and you saw to the future, you would say, well, actually the situation is very bad for us. But due to technology, which is what you learn in the university, look at what has happened from 1998. The future that looked very dark is this way now. So these are now the reserves in shale, okay? So you can see that if you look at the magnitude, they were expecting with the technology at that point that at most there were going to be between 160 and 180 trillions of cubic feet of those resources, and look at that. And it will keep going up because of that technology is enabling this. So I will move away. This is more details about the different reservoirs. Okay, here, this is US dry natural gas between 1990 and 2040, the same here. And this is crude oil, and this is gas. And this is basically explaining in more detail. I will share the slides with you later. This gives more details about where in the country you can find those resources. The energy demand will double by 2035. That's scary in some ways, okay? So where are we gonna get that from? This is what, well, what this is saying is that's what the people will be needing in order to run businesses, okay? And here you have different sources of energy: nuclear, renewables, natural gas, coal, liquids. So between this guy and this guy, that's where most of the energy will be generated from. What is the interconnection between these? So here you have liquefied natural gas, and here you have the pipelines. So we all are connected. So you are in Santa Cruz. Where is your gas going? Brazil, Argentina, right? So this is showing pipelines. If you are in the United States, a lot will go to Mexico, to Canada, and some from Canada to United States. Look how many arrows are going to this country here. What is this country?
Japan.
Japan, right? So they don't have oil, but they produce a lot of goods, and they are getting energy from all these places. There is a country that has been in the news a lot lately, and they have a lot of gas. And where are they sending that? Basically to Europe, right? So these are the shale gas resources by country in trillions of cubic feet. So look how much they have and how much is here. And in the next slides, I will explain why it will be very difficult to untap all these resources with the same efficiency that these resources are being untapped. And it has to do with the technology, and it has to do with the system of the country that allows for thousands and thousands of small individuals going into the business of fracking. Okay. China unconventional gas forecast, which is basically is redundant with respect to the previous one. So now let's go to some summary. The world's fastest growing hydrocarbon producer is this country. Since 2010, it has grown 25%. By 2020, it will have surpassed Russia as the world's largest gas producer because of that technology and the market that allows anybody to go and try to exploit. Also, by the same year, we will have become one of the largest gas exporters. Okay, and we will change, and that will change. There is a typo here that trade patterns and pricing. The oil production has grown by 60% since 2008, has climbed by 3 million barrels a day to 6 million barrels a day. Okay, and by 2016, just 2 years from now, it will exceed 10 million barrels a day. All of this is what is happening in the United States, and will become the world's largest oil producer. What is allowing this? Efficiency. The engineering operations related to the gas exploitation are increasing in efficiency, and that's what is allowing this. Okay? So basically, good engineering. The cost of finding and production of gas in shale and oil in tight rocks are still going down. Why is the cost going down? Because the engineering is better, so it increases efficiency. Gas production is expected to grow by 30% by 2020 due to the availability of capital. Okay, people are willing to invest massive amounts of capital to make that happen. And as I said earlier, the private ownership of land and exploitation rights. So in a few years, US will be producing 12 million barrels per day. Okay. The cost is going down, and these are two numbers that you may want to keep in mind for the next 10 years. For the whole phenomenon to keep going, you need a price per 1,000 cubic feet of natural gas in the United States to be close to at least $5.5, and the trading rate per barrel of oil globally has to be between $70 and $80. What this means is right now, in many places in the United States, they are running a loss because this price is lower than that. But the demand for that will go up, and that should increase the price. And these are the numbers that translate all of this into the gain for the economy in the United States. Okay? Look at the savings, $30 billion per year in electricity costs. Okay, that's the savings that they will be observing there. Factors that could change. So I was giving you all that nice good news, right? But what are the factors that could affect that nice future that we were showing in the previous slide? Environmental regulations, and by this I don't mean that environmental regulations are bad. It's that may affect the production, okay? Declining rates of production, like how much you are getting out of the underground, and the drilling economics. So let's go into that. So the environmental issues are, there are a bunch of grammar errors and misspellings. I apologize for that. I should have put this spelling. Underground aquifers can be contaminated, seismic effect of the fracking, and the pollution at the surface side. So what is this about? Like if your horizontal well is too close to the aquifer, which by the way is not the case, they are usually very much deeper than the aquifers, then probably some of the chemicals in the fracking fluid could contaminate that. Now remember I told you what you use for fracking is water, sand, and chemicals. And the chemicals are only 1% of the total fracking fluid, okay, just to give you a picture. We'll talk about seismic in a few minutes. And the pollution at the surface side, that's probably the riskiest part, because all the elements that you saw in the third slide with all this equipment and all the chemicals that are moving around in the surface, those are the ones that have the most chances of contaminating. So what the industry is doing to address this, well, they are trying to create standards for the operations. Best practices are evolving, but it is a common feeling among the companies that the message that they are communicating about these operations has to be improved, okay? Because like the average person in the United States has a tendency to believe that this is not good, that it's too risky, but it has to do with the way in which the information is communicated. What is a production tail? Which is when you start exploiting the shale, if you don't do that at the correct rate, you may suck most of the oil that is close to the perforation, and then you may not continue producing a few months later. So the technology that you use in order to determine the rate at which you exploit the formation is very important, okay? Because if you don't do it right, then you will have a fast drop. It's like if you had a sponge that has water, if you squeeze it suddenly, very quickly and a lot, and then probably you will run out of all the water inside. But if you do it in a different way, in the proper way, you will be able to extract pretty much all the fluid inside the sponge, okay? But they have found that more fracked wells have long tail, which means that they have a good, decent, high production at the beginning that continues along the time. The economics risk, the industry in 2013, just last year, invested $60 billion, again, billion is 10 to the 9, more in production than it earned. So you say, well, that's a disaster. They're on the red, right? How can you say that this is going in the right direction? Well, most of the investment was for buying land and licenses. So now they are equipped and ready to exploit the formations. For the drilling economics to work, the gas has to be above $4 and the oil has to be above $70 per barrel, okay? So, one more slide, yeah, here. So probably this is the best summary on the economics. The US shale reserves are 15% of the global reserve in the world. By beginning of 2013, the US biggest exports were oil, gas, and petrochemicals. Okay, that's how fast it's growing. More than agricultural products, transportation equipment, etc. By 2015, USA will surpass Saudi Arabia in petrochemical feedstock export. That's big, okay? You know, many of the conflicts are related to the availability of oil and petrochemicals. In 2011, the US oil trade balance for oil was negative, minus 300 plus billions. By 2020, just 6 years from now, it will be plus 5 billion, okay? Which is not just 5, it's the minus 34 plus the 5, right? So it's actually, from this year, it will have gone up by 359, okay? And the US trade balance from minus 8 billion in 2013 will go to plus 14 billion, okay? So what happens after 2020 will only be for good. And remember the map that I showed you with the pipelines connecting the countries? So the US pipelines export to Mexico and Canada will likely grow by 400%. So this is a type of equipment that you use in fracking, and the key technologies that will, in which you should pay attention, and I think it's the same case in Argentina, Brazil, and this area of Bolivia, is that the technical challenges are mainly on the energy that you use to power the equipment that is on the surface in order to pump the fluids, okay? How much energy you use affects the cost of the operation. See here, the average savings, if you use this, is $1,200 per day, and if you use this, it's $18,000 per well. The seismicity is being studied in Stanford. Scientists believe that if they follow a number of suggestions, it will not have a very big negative impact in the formation. So some of their recommendations are, so let's say that you're here and you're doing the fracking. A typical seismic event generates the same amount of energy as dropping a gallon of milk from your chest to the floor. So imagine you have 4 liters of milk in a bottle, and I drop it. That's the amount of energy equivalent to the seismic energy of fracking, okay? So it has some effect, but it's not that huge, okay? My last slide is, well, is explaining how it happens, how it goes into the formation, and if there is a fracture. So the earthquake depends on whether the injection into what kind of rocks is being done, and then recommendations: avoid injection into active faults and limit the injection rate, so the pressure at which you are doing that. Okay, my references. So I will be willing to take questions for 5 minutes. Have questions?
Yeah, I understand that there's a new scheme that will not use water but another fluid.
Correct.
And so that reduces the
environmental impact. Right. So in fact, I have background slides. I don't have time to present them, but yes, you are completely correct. So there are companies, actually, they're trying to start to mass produce this fracking without water technologies. Yes. More questions?
You got a question over here?
Yeah.
Question here.
Jorge.
Yeah. Tell us about what type of chemicals they are introducing there.
I don't know. So, by law, the companies are not forced to disclose the formulation of those chemicals, which, by the way, is 1% of the whole thing, right? Because they claim that a lot of know-how relies on the IP related to that 1%. It seems to us, by talking with people in different oil and gas companies, that may change. That there are some basic characteristics of the fluid that may be shared, mainly to address the preoccupation in the population about what's going on there. Yeah, but I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think that they're acidic, I think.
Yeah.
They're acidic.
Acidic.
Yeah.
Say, let's go a little bit further. This addition of chemicals, as a mechanical engineer,
yes,
you are based on the need to get lower viscosity, or are due to the need to dissolve the target?
Yeah. So the fracking takes place it takes place for only 1 hour. So basically, you have the formation closed, you pump the fluid, you create the fracking, and by that what you do is like when you are sucking gas from a car tank, you do that and then you let it go. So by doing that is they spark the flow of the oil into the formation. And also what that does, it changes the porosity and the permeability of the formation. The porosity is how much volume available to contain the oil is there, and the permeability is the connectivity between these voids. So the fluids, the answer to your question is all of the above. It changed the the viscosity, the characteristic of the fluid, the porosity, and the permeability of the formation. But once it closes, that's it. You know, and so a lot of the preoccupation is where does that oil, where does that acidic fluid go after, right? Yeah. So one more question and then I go. Yeah, one.
Can you tell us, since you described the process of injecting the liquid, all that liquid is also need to be recovered and taken away.
Yes.
And I think you began to talk about that in the last question.
Yes.
Can you tell us what happens to that fluid?
Right, okay. So thank you for that question. So imagine the well is horizontal and it has holes. The holes go like 1 inch into the formation, okay, like this much, like little cones. So now you pump the fluid at a very high pressure, and then the fluid tries to go into those perforations, and then it starts cracking, like a little earthquake, opens the formation, right? And then that fluid is keeping the formation open while you keep the pressure very high on the surface. Yeah. You know? Now, once you release the pressure on the surface, then the pressure of the formation will close. So some of the fluid will stay, but as Jim is saying, some of that will go back. So you grab the fluid on the surface and you reprocess that. You know? So you that are young engineers get involved into areas related to seismic logging, physics that has to do with NMR and stuff like that, that allows you to interrogate the formation and check what's going on beyond. No? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.